from the Progressive Policy Institute. I have a question for Laura, and first of all, thank you all for a great presentation. We all very much appreciate it. Laura, I want to go from the big to the very little, and it's something called de minimis.
My favorite issue.
I figured you would enjoy talking about it. And, you know, as you know, the TPP has done a lot to facilitate business and exporting for American small businesses. You have the digital provisions, you have the small businesses chapter, and you have the provisions that help those companies use express services to deliver their products. But if you're trying to ship something to Canada, you still have to go through customs hassles if the online shipment is, I think, 20 Canadian dollars or more. Could you talk about that and how that could benefit small businesses? And I know it was not adequately covered in the TPP, and how you think that can be resolved going forward.
Thanks, Ed. The de minimis issue is so fundamental to e-commerce, and we were, in the context of the TPP negotiations, trying to advance a minimum standard of getting all the countries to go up to $200 de minimis. For those that maybe this isn't an issue that you eat, sleep, and breathe like I do, you know, when you get on when you come into the United States and you have that customs form that you fill out, and you can bring in anything you want in the United States up to $800 without having to pay duties on it. We were advocating here in the United States as part of the customs modernization bill that, well, just because it isn't coming in someone's carry-on bag or their suitcase on a passenger aircraft, why don't we apply the same standard across the board for all products coming in, whether they're coming on a person's person or they're coming in a cargo hold? And the US Congress agreed and said, you know what, that makes a lot of sense to equalize that standard. And now the United States of America, I think effective March 15th is when it goes into effect, there's an $800 de minimis standard, so that any product that's coming into the United States below that level doesn't get duties applied to it. And that's really valuable because it streamlines the process for products coming in. When you think about everything my daughters and I buy online, everything's most of the time under $800. I'm asking them twice, do you really need it if it's more? But the point being that it speeds the movement of these small and medium-sized companies' products that they're selling for retail, or those parts that don't have a very high value per se, but they're vitally important to that machine continuing to run, and you needed to get it across the border quickly. Well, we wanted to see that same standard around the world. We have Prime Minister Trudeau in town, and you better believe we're pushing on this issue. In Canada, it's $20. What can you bring in for 20 bucks nowadays? You know, that standard really needs to be raised. By the way, Mexico is $50. For the North American supply chain, we need to have seamless movement of goods to be part of these supply chain and retail offerings to really spur economic activity and economic opportunity. And you can do that with de minimis. Now I'm going to say to you that in pushing within UPS on this very issue, I can say that I met with a lot of resistance. UPS is the biggest broker in the world. We make money by helping companies surmount those big barriers at the borders. But we've recognized that how do you make more trade move? You make it easier at the border. De minimis is fundamental to that, because when we looked at a lot of the packages in our cargo holds or in our tractor trailers, a lot of them were under that $800, even $200 value. If we could speed their movements, we could be helping those companies grow. We decided we don't need those brokerage fees. We need customers getting bigger and better at exporting and sending their products around the world, and the first start was with de minimis. So that's an issue we need to keep working on. Ed, you asked, what do we do next? You know what, I'm a big believer is you can't fail if you don't give up. You gotta keep pushing the issue. So we got a a language in the agreement that says governments would try to keep looking at this issue and try to work toward that standard. So what we're doing now is educating countries and their parliaments and their legislators about the fundamental importance of this issue, working with the Canadian government to help them see that the perceived loss of duties that they calculate are going to be far overwhelmed by the increased volume and trade that they're going to see by virtue of just raising their de minimis standard. We're working through APEC, where there is a Pathfinder commitment to getting to $200 across all of the APEC member economies. And so every opportunity that we have to explain the fundamental importance of this single issue to e-commerce, to economic growth, to facilitating trade that's so essential in these supply chains begins and ends with de minimis, and it ain't $20. So.